Okay, somebody asked me a while ago to show how I put my breeding setup together. You know, arrange a breeding cage. So, since these two are not in the nest box yet, this is Razzle and Remington. Since they're not in the nest box yet, I thought I'd use them as an example. Okay, first of all, a cage big enough for the birds to be able to catch a little air. They aren't flying very far. This cage is 2 feet long and 15 inches deep and 16 inches high. But it's enough. They can fly from one end to the other, get their wings stretched out, bounce up and down on the perches and that kind of thing. That's just really good for their health. Okay, nest boxes. This is actually a lovebird nest box, but it works just fine. So this box is sitting right on the shelf. It's not one of the high ones, but as you can see, they're a little like, these are actually like for hanging Christmas lights. They're little hooks that have a screw on the end of them, and I just stick them on the front of it, and then the box hangs, like for instance that one up there. Hangs down, so that's how I arrange them. This cage has doors on the side. This is a breeding cage, so it has doors on either end that I can just lift up and stick the nest box there. If a cage is not specifically a breeding cage and doesn't have an opening like this, you can simply take a pair of wire snips and cut out 3 of the little bars in the side of the cage and accomplish the same thing. And then if you're not using it for breeding, you can use one of these clamps and clamp like the lid of a plastic container over the hole, over the opening when it's not being used for breeding. So that's the nest box. I always have a nest box that you can get into and look and see what's going on. And nest boxes should have an indentation in the bottom like that. Now, I've seen nest boxes with really teeny indentations that are only like 1.5 inches in diameter. But the thing is, these birds don't actually sit on top of their eggs. They sit and arrange the eggs around them. And since budgies are bigger than regular parakeets, I went ahead and made my indentations 3 inches across, and the hens will sit themselves in there and then arrange the eggs on either side of them within the indentation, and it seems to work pretty well. Obviously, they need a food cup and a water cup, and it needs to be changed every day. This cage and most breeder cages has a wire bottom. That's not ideal because you have to, when the babies fledge, you have to pull them out of this cage because they have such a hard time walking, and they can't learn to eat anything because it all off the ground because it all falls through the bars of the cage and they can't reach it. So really, for fledglings, you want a cage that has no wire on the bottom. But like I said, the upside to the wire on the bottom is that it is way easier to keep this cage clean and sanitary. So, you know, it is what it is. So I have a couple of cages that don't have wire on the bottom, and I am actually, you know, moving families into that when the time comes for the chicks. And the chicks will spend maybe a week in the fledgling cage, and then they're off. Whereas a pair will be in one of these breeder cages for 6 weeks, at least. 6 to 7 weeks. As you put them in here and they get used to each other and start to breed and start to lay and then incubate the eggs and bring up the babies. So the fledgling, you don't need as many of the fledgling cages because they spend a lot less time in there. But, you know, it is really kind of important to have a fledgling cage that has no bars on the bottom because the chicks learn to eat by picking up stuff off the bottom of the cage. And they can look at a cup like this that's see-through and sit there and chew on the outside of it because they can see the seed in there and they know it's food, but they can't figure out how to get to it. So, like I said, this is not ideal for fledglings, but it's great for everything else. Okay, so I got the food cup, I got the water cup. So what's this third little cup? This is what I call the mineral bar. This has grit, which is very fine sand, okay? They sell grit that looks like little pebbles, practically. Way too big. We don't want that. We want grit that is sand. In fact, probably the best thing you could do is go to a beach and get some beach sand. Nice fine sand. It also has ground up oyster shell in it, which I get at the food store. And then the other ingredient that this has that's really important is salt. Hens lose a lot of electrolytes when they're laying eggs. So I put a dash of salt and a dash of potassium salt. Iodized salt and potassium salt in there. And they go through that stuff. Okay, another thing that they get is a cuddle bone. You can see she started to chew on this one already. You can take a cuddle bone and stick it in a cage with a bird that's not breeding, and they'll never touch it. But when a hen goes into laying mode, she will destroy an entire cuddle bone in a matter of days. And the males will continue to chew on the cuddle bones and feed it to the females when they're sitting on eggs in the nest. So when breeding, you really need a cuddle bone. You really need the grit and the minerals and the salt, including potassium salt, because the hens give up a huge amount of bodily fluids laying eggs. I mean, by the time they're done, they've laid eggs that equal half their weight. And all of that water and all of the nutrients and everything in those eggs came out of their bodies. So they really need those electrolytes available, the minerals, especially the calcium, that kind of thing. So that's about it. I also, when I'm raising birds, breeding birds, feed, spray millet, this stuff. If you give this stuff to adult birds on a regular basis when they're just out in the flight cage, they'll all get gout from it because it has a lot of fat in it. But a female bird that's laying eggs, think of it, an egg yolk is almost completely fat. So if she's going to lay a bunch of eggs with egg yolks in them, she's going to need a lot of fat. Also, I call this baby food because this is the first food that chicks learn to eat. So this is an essential part of what goes into their cages. They get some of this every day. And the more babies they have, the more of it they get. And then the other thing is I try to give them fresh fruits or vegetables. Actually, I haven't found my birds like fruit much, so I primarily give them vegetables, leafy greens, and frozen veggie mix. And I try to give that to them every day when they're breeding, and at least 3 times a week when they're out in the big flight cages. So that is my entire breeding formula. I love these two. This is a beautiful pair. I can hardly wait to see what's going to happen with them. Okay.